You know, when a business hits a growth plateau, the answer is almost never found in some standard cookie-cutter best practices list. The biggest opportunities, they're usually hidden. They're buried deep in user behavior, in psychology, or even in the core strategy itself. To find them, you really have to think like a detective.
And that's exactly what I do. I apply what I call a forensic approach to growth. I'm like a detective for the business. I dig into the data, I analyze the human element, and I look way past the obvious to find out exactly where, and more importantly, why a funnel is leaking value. My job is to solve the problems that nobody else can even see.
So, in this explainer, we're going to walk through this method together. We'll look at 3 core areas. First, we'll diagnose the digital user journey. Then, we'll get into optimizing the human elements of sales. And finally, we'll zoom way out to validate the core business strategy itself.
Okay, let's start with the digital experience. It's actually amazing how tiny, almost invisible points of friction can have a massive, just an outsized impact on revenue.
To show you what I mean, I'll walk you through the work I did for 2 e-commerce brands, Ava Estelle, a skincare company, and Kasari, a smartwatch retailer. Now, both of them were really confident that their sites were optimized, but my analysis showed they were leaving some serious money on the table.
So, with Ava Estelle, the challenge was that their site was already considered heavily optimized. But, when I started digging into the heat maps and watching the session recordings, I found this critical flaw. Their single most powerful asset, we're talking the before and after photos that prove the product works, it was buried so far down the page that 57% of their users never, ever saw it. The solution was actually pretty simple in theory, but it was so powerful. I just re-architected the page. I moved that social proof right up into what I call the prime pixel area, the very first thing that users see. And the impact? It was immediate. That one single change delivered an 11.82% increase in their conversion rate and added $1.62 in revenue for every single person who visited the site.
Kasari had a really similar issue. They launched this great-looking new landing page, but my analysis showed that their add-to-cart actions had actually plummeted. The problem was what I call navigational ambiguity. Their call to action was this passive little phrase, "Shop 37% off." My hypothesis was that if we just added a clear directive command, we could reduce that hesitation.
And get this, by simply changing the copy to a direct command, "Shop 37% off, add to cart now," we saw a staggering 117.8% increase in the conversion rate. A few simple words made a massive, massive impact on their bottom line.
But it's not always about the digital interface. Sometimes the biggest leaks are in the psychology of the sales process itself. So let's look at how to optimize that human element. To demonstrate this, let's look at my work with MirrorMe CV. That's a resume writing consultancy, and Parkalot.io, a B2B software company. Both of them were really struggling to connect with their prospects on a human level. Oh, the problem at MirrorMe CV was fascinating. They were using a value-first sales strategy where they offered a free CV audit. Great idea, right? But this well-intentioned audit was being perceived as criticism. It was actually damaging the prospect's confidence, and it caused the referral close rate, which used to be perfect, to plummet down to just 40%. So I completely re-engineered their sales psychology. We stopped leading with criticism, and we shifted to validation first. And the results? They were absolutely explosive. Conversions grew 2.4 times, up to a near-perfect 96% close rate. This gave us the confidence to then increase their prices by 840%. Now, let's look at a B2B example. Parkalot was burning through high-value leads because their messaging was entirely product-centric. It was just a list of features. So I shifted their entire sales narrative to be user-centric. We created tailored messaging that spoke directly to the pain points of each stakeholder, from the CEO all the way down to the receptionist. Just changing how we talk to people had a profound impact. Email open rates jumped 400%, and the sales funnel became 3.9 times more efficient. It just proves that empathy is one of the most powerful tools you have for growth.
All right, finally, sometimes the issue isn't in the tactics at all. The most valuable work I can do is to zoom way out and ask, is the fundamental strategy even sound?
So let's look at 2 final case studies that really highlight this strategic level thinking. SRP Inventories, which is a property services franchise, and English with Ammiel, an education venture.
At SRP Inventories, they were rolling out this new franchise model, but franchisees were quitting during this really aggressive 2-week training.
Now, using a framework called the competence curve, I diagnosed that the problem wasn't the training material. The issue is purely psychological. They were hitting this phase of doubt and just losing confidence. It was their emotional quit point.
So the solution wasn't more technical training, it was psychological support. I implemented a system specifically to manage their anxiety during that critical doubt phase. The result? 100% franchisee retention. We solved the churn problem by addressing the emotion, not just the logic.
Now, this last case study, it's about a different kind of success. The founder of English with Ammiel was facing a sudden exodus of clients. So the crucial question I had to answer was this: is this a fixable marketing problem, or is the entire market for this service structurally unviable?
After conducting a full market autopsy, my research confirmed that the market itself was the problem. There just was no reliable, scalable demand. So the most valuable contribution I made was the recommendation to kill the project. This strategic decision prevented massive sunk cost losses of both time and capital. And sometimes the biggest win is knowing when to walk away.
So let's just bring it all together. Whether it's elevating social proof for Ava Estelle, re-engineering sales psychology for Mirror Me CV, or making that tough strategic call for English with Ammiel, this forensic approach consistently delivers measurable results. It's always about finding and fixing the real problem.
So what's the key takeaway here? I'll leave you with this thought. The biggest risk to your business isn't trying something new and failing. It's continuing to pour resources into something that's already broken simply because you haven't diagnosed the real reason why.